Today, I've got two remarkable people in practice. Now, often we only have one. However, we had to have the double act of Nigel and Nikki Adams on with us today. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping that we're not going to have any battles over the microphone from you guys.
Well, there's usually a battle somewhere down the line, Carl, so we'll see how we go, shall we? Thanks very much for having us on. It's appreciated.
No, honestly, thank you so much. This is the first time on the ACCA podcast that we've actually had husband and wife on and able to ask those really, really tricky questions. So first things first, tell us a little bit about yourselves and the firm.
Sure, yeah. Well, as I say, Nigel Adams, I founded Ad Val in 2001, so 25 years, actually in 2 weeks' time, which is great.
Congratulations.
And originally we set the practice up very much as a support for, we've got a young family and we wanted to, at the time, prior to that, I was in industry. I was working in Russia, actually, in the oil and gas sector. So was not home a great deal. And we made a lifestyle choice, really, to set our practice up on the basis we could, obviously, running a practice is really, really easy. So we can balance things as
Sure.
we want to, which everybody that sets a practice up knows that is not true at all. So we founded Ad Val in 2001. And I mean, like a lot of small practices, really, we're focused, we're a small business. We focused on small businesses. Went for about 5 or 6 years. And then we had, you find that in life you have these, fish or cut bait moments. And at that time, we were working around the clock. We've got a small team. We're working around the clock, and just, to be honest, not making any money whatsoever, not getting the work-life balance. And we then made a call on the business to say we either do this or we sell it and we go back to our corporate lives.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think just to give you a bit of background, I'm not an accountant, but I worked for an accountancy recruitment company.
Okay.
Not doing recruitment. I tried it for 3 months and realised that selling wasn't my thing. But I was lucky. I worked with an entrepreneur who built a business from the ground up.
Got it.
So my skills were different to Nigel's. So I think we were lucky that we had complementary skills. But because I was coming at things from systems and people and process, I think we got 7 years in and we thought we just didn't see how we could make money doing it. And we thought we might be better off just going back to our previous life. But the flyer came across my desk, and you probably had one of these in those days of, how to build a £2 million practice.
Yeah.
So we said, well, that'd be all right, wouldn't it? We could retire on that. So we went to an AVN conference, heard Steve Pipe, in being evangelical as he is, about what you could offer your clients. And that was a turning point for us, because we realised that at that point we were only offering what we could deliver, and more precisely Nigel, because he was the accountant and he was client facing. And it was one of those turning points where we thought, actually, if we want to grow this, then we're going to need to be more purposeful about it. So,
absolutely. Can I just rewind quickly, if that's okay?
Sure.
So back to the start. Obviously, Nigel, you mentioned that you made the leap from corporate, working for the Russians. Nikki, did you start the business with Nigel, or did you join during that process?
No, it was one of those funny things. I dabbled because we had a young family.
Okay.
And so I'd had 11 years in London working with this entrepreneur in London, and he'd built his business. So I learned how to build a business from 6 people up to 80 people.
Sure.
And Nigel had a background, so he'd worked in practice, so he'd come out of school with no qualification. So he went down the AAT, then ACCA and route.
I was not good at school.
No, so
same journey as my own. So,
and it's just amazing how many people, when you actually uncover it, have had similar things. But I think So I was in the periphery of it probably the first few years, and I
Okay.
started part time. But as I say, my dad was a systems analyst, and so he was always about process. So we'd always spent a lot on technology right from the word go, really. So I was banging that drum and the drum of development for our team. Whereas Nigel, you were much more client focused and really we now know through personality profiling that actually Nigel's more of a visionary than an accountant profile. So
Got it.
whereas I'm the implementer, so I take the vision and turn it into action.
Excellent. So we had the very traditional visionary integrator relationship. So the rocket fuel traction style
Yeah.
methodology,
Yeah.
which is an amazing mix, but can also cause some challenges as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few years in, you'd got to the point where it was do or die for the business. You had to decide whether there actually was a business there that could make money and give you the dream that you had hoped for. Went to the AVN conference, heard good old Steve on stage. Please don't tell me it was the one in Leeds where Michael Gerber attended.
No. I wish it had been.
I wish it had been, but the introduction was to Gerberism, and for me that was a light bulb moment. I suppose if you like, with the visionary hat on, I
Yeah.
saw that and said, "Hang on, this." Everybody always said firms are not scalable. You typically, depending on the size, 250,000 fees to 500, 750 if you were good, million if you're a superstar at the time. And I think my natural challenging self was to say, I think if we're going to do anything, we've got to be able to scale this. And that's going to involve taking me out of wearing all those hats, and embracing what as Nikki says, Nikki's a systems analyst. But I think the thing that we've always done is actually look for expertise outside of our own skill sets and outside of accountancy. Not always worked, but when it's worked, it's been quite dramatic. So it's people that are seeing things differently. And I guess that was the moment where we sat down and said, let's do this. It was one of those moments where let's do this, but let's do it in our own way. Let's run it like a business. And some years later, we met. We were working closely with ACCA, and it was Claire Bennison who put a finger on. I was the head of ACCA at the time. Put a finger on the pulse. She said, "You guys are a business. You're not a practice." And I never really thought about it, but we have all the traits of a business. We have partners don't do chargeable work. Partners do chargeable. They don't do non-chargeable work, so they don't do business development. We've got a sales team that do that, and they're qualified and they're professionals at being salespeople. They're not accountants that do a bit of that. Likewise with our IT and tech, we have IT and tech people do that. We don't have a partner that does a few spreadsheets and chargeable work. So the whole thing has always been about, if you like, leaning on. When I was at Gazprom, I learned I'm not the cleverest guy in the room. So you just bring clever people in, and the systems tend to come online. And
it's such a fundamental point. I just want to bring this one out for the audience. Great accountants don't make great marketers, great salespeople, great IT people, great managers. Actually, when it comes to building a practice that's truly scalable, you need to get the right people on the right seats. I know that, the saying that I always use, which is actually a really bad analogy, but Dulux won't have painters and decorators as CEO, COO, CFO, and so on. And when we look at it through that lens, we think, that'd be mad. Why would they do that? But actually, so many times in practice, we do the same ourselves and expect those who are skilled in one area to be skilled in other areas just through time served.
I think there's also a recognition. I think you have to make that decision. Are you a lifestyle business or are you a genuine business? And I think the vision, when we looked at it, it's not growth for growth's sake. I think our philosophy had been, for the services that we really think small businesses need, it's not just about accounting. It's about business advice. It's about, obviously the first thing that we did was look at what we thought our clients really wanted, not what they needed, but what they actually really wanted. And it came down to tax advice, because, people want to feel that they're paying the least amount of tax, legally possible.
Absolutely.
So we focused on that to start with, and because then they're willing to pay more on a value-based pricing model that way. And we wanted to be able to offer more services. So how do you keep that wheel going round? You have to have a good financial performance. And to get a good financial performance, you have to have everybody pulling in the same direction and understanding what the metrics are that you're measuring, and how you can have sometimes difficult conversations with people that are not performing to that level, and also not willing to take on board some of the technology that's going to enable them to be more efficient. So I hope it comes across that we've not just said, oh, actually, I just want to be. I'd always wanted to get us to a £10 million practice, not because I want to be rich. It was because I think to actually be able to make that kind of innovation, you have to generate enough profits and not be overcharging individual clients. You've got to keep your prices at a reasonable level, take some of that profit, a small proportion, into innovation. So
Absolutely.
that was the reason for this growth journey.
Nobody accidentally becomes a 2, 5, 10, 20, 30 mil practice, and it very rarely happens through bad intentions. It's a case of treating the team well, treating the clients well, doing a good job, and ultimately providing value to all stakeholders of a business. And it's clear that you've done that. So what I want to dig a little bit deeper to begin with into, the two stars of the show, so to speak, although I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't call yourself stars of the show at Ad Val. But for yourselves, the visionary integrator dynamic duo, about how you guys work together, how you hold each other accountable, what you do, what you don't do, and so on, and then to broaden it out to the team. How you find the right team members, how you bring them on board with the culture of a business, and what you see for the future. So we'll start for yourselves. I mean, how has the dynamic been of working together?
Well, it's so funny.
We got divorced 30 years ago. No. 43 years we've been married.
I think every person says, "How can you work together?" And I say, we've been together for 40 years, so we do quite like each other, actually. But there's no question that it has its ups and its downs. I think the big upside for us is that when we've had challenges, we've faced them together.
Sure.
So, and there have been some real challenges, particularly over the last 5 years.
We've always operated in a no blame culture.
Yeah.
We try stuff, and there's, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. There's no, well, you said that or you did that. We've never operated like that. I mean, we started off with nothing, and our philosophy has always been, well, if we end up with nothing, hey, it's been a journey, isn't it? And I mean, Nikki's more of a strategist than I am. So Nikki will put the framework in place, and then I'll have the occasional good idea and say, well, let's do this, or could be operated differently, or that type of thing. And then Nikki will put in the strategy and the detail, because I'm great. I'll leave all the ropes hanging and I'll run off into the sunset while nothing's actually tied down and sorted out.
I think that's something that I've noticed over the years recruiting. There's because Nigel came into accounting through profiling years ago. When we started on this growth journey, and we had failures, to be honest, with taking people on not the right fit, and it's painful when things go wrong. You put a lot of effort and time and money into recruiting, and then it doesn't work. So we started profiling our team. Obviously, the tools that you can get nowadays are a lot cheaper than they were when you were tested and had to go through psychometric testing. So we do understand each other's personality profiles. We understand what's our strengths and what's our weaknesses, and luckily we're complementary to each other in that way. But it's also the wider team. So
Yes.
we already know, particularly in roles, we know the types of personality that will work in those roles. We know the successors for us in our skill sets, who we've got coming up through the ranks, who can take on when we ride off into the sunset at some point. But it's people is the hardest thing, because it's not an exact science, and things change and the world changes, and communication styles have changed.
Business would be so much easier without people, wouldn't it? But the reality is,
no clients, perfect, isn't it?
yeah, but we know that business isn't
Absolutely
B2B or B2C; it's H to H, human to human, and it's all about the people, whether it's clients, whether it's team members, and so on. Just to kick the tires a little bit more of how you guys work together before we then go on to the team. So clearly, the psychometric testing would have demonstrated, I guess, factually, but you would have known this anyway, that you were different personalities, you bring different strengths to the table. One of the challenges that can often bring is when you've got different mindsets, perspectives, and so on, it can sometimes cause communication issues and different prioritizations and so on. As a partnership in life as well as in business, how do you handle those? And I've got a follow-on question of how do you then create the separation between what might be a situation at work and what might be a situation at home?
I'm going to be told off here for sure, because
go for it. You've got my permission, Nikki.
I am a bit of a workaholic in terms of I don't think of it as work. I love building a business. I love the people in it. I love the profession that we're in. I think we have a wonderful life helping people in different ways. So I have a terrible time putting boundaries in place, which I get told off for.
Occasionally.
Nigel's much better than me at this. But that's because you've got a lot of hobbies in your life.
I've got lots of hobbies, and the thing with my personality is I'm either up or down. So I charge at things 100 miles an hour, and certainly as I've got older, I get towards the end of the week and the battery starts to run down a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I think.
But I think I would say we stay in our lane in as much as we've kind of figured out. The only time we've ever really not been on the same page was when we were looking at investors. And
sure.
Initially,
you're right.
Because I think your view had been, well, if we're selling anything, let's just sell the whole thing. Whereas I'm much more in it for the longer term. And also we've got people in the business that have been with us a long time. We've got our children are in the business, so it's not just about what we want or anything like that. So that's probably the only time that we've not been in agreement. But I think, going back to what we said, I'm focused internally and strategically. So I'm the one that puts the meat on the bones of the vision and where we and I would say probably the driving force of
I'd say that.
Yeah.
Whereas Nigel's really totally left field thinker. So you can't pin him down too much, because that takes away his strength. So
absolutely.
I don't know if you know Alex Black in our organisation. He's a very similar profile to Nigel. It's the same thing. You're ruining what's good about them if you tie their feet to the ground too much. So
100%, because it's the I like to phrase it as the difference between the £100 hours and the £1,000 moments, where there might be a flash of inspiration, but there might also be days of wasted effort or, going out there, just seeing what's out there, and you just don't know how it could tie up and retrospectively become a £1,000 moment 2 years down the line. I totally get that difference. So before we move on to the team itself, can you give us just a very helicopter view picture of the practice as it is today?
As it is today, sure. So we are
80-ish staff.
80 staff with 7.5 million fees at the moment. That should change
We've got a deal going through at the moment, so
Fantastic. Fingers crossed.
That'll get us over the 100 stuff.
The core of what we still do is we do a lot of compliance work. I love compliance. I've always loved compliance. I think with technology where it is, it makes it infinitely scalable. As long as it's as long as it's priced properly. We have got some specialisms. We've got a specialist R&D team,
Sure.
which is brilliant dynamics in the business, because we've got scientists, we've got software engineers, we've got a completely different type of profile which interacts with the team, which is great. I mean, it sort of adds to the flavour of it. Other than that, we do. I hate the advisory. I hate buzzwords. I hate the word thought leader. I hate, advisory is the future, and nobody actually knows what advisory is.
Yeah.
I think for the sort of clients we've got, the majority of clients, the advice they want is, hang on a second, I've got a tax bill of 50 grand to pay, and I've got no money. Where is it?
Absolutely. As we know, clients want a couple of things. They want to make a little bit more money. They want to be able to sleep at night and know the tax man's not going to put them in prison, and maybe, just maybe, go on holiday or retire at some point.
Absolutely right. And that's the profile of most small business, correct? Yeah. I mean, we've got aspirational businesses, and there's a different requirement for that. But we certainly wouldn't say that is, that's our reason for being here. We're here for small business, and that's from startup. And we've got
probably small, medium now.
We've got some very large businesses now that have grown with us, which has been great. And I think that's been the reason we've been able to retain those clients, is because we've gone on the journey together. So we've grown, they've grown, we've learned from ourselves. I think brutal honesty is the probably the biggest mantra. Is sharing stories, as you know, that's the most powerful thing. We tried that, we got it wrong. And
I think over the years, and we listen to a lot of people in the industry. We listen to people outside the industry, and that's where I love to read. I'm LinkedIn junkie as well. Looking at what people are doing, and I think you can learn so much from just snippets of things that people are doing. And obviously, conferences, they're great, providing you're prepared to do something off the back of what you.
Oh, absolutely! It's all about the implementation.
I think so. Yeah, so that's where we are. We're sort of say 7.5 mil at the moment. 80 staff. Got really big ambitions. I think that we took investment 18 months ago from a phenomenal investor who supports us in what we do. Backs us 100%, which is all we need. It's not private equity. And I'm not dissing private equity. It's got its place, but it wouldn't have fitted. Ultimately, when Nikki said we weren't on the same page, it was over that direction. And Nikki was, don't tell her this for God's sake, but Nikki was right. And then we found a partner that works perfectly for us and supports us, which is great, and supports us into the future. Which is
fantastic.
What we want to do.
Brilliant. So, a tremendous journey that you've been through. For 25 years, it might feel like it's been a bit of a slog, but actually it's a tremendous journey. What I love most about this, though, and what I think is going to frame the credibility and the context of the tips you're going to give us around building the team, is that so many of the audience will listen to this and think, this is what I've been saying all along. This is what my clients want. It's going to resonate. You're a practice like ours, like many. It's not about buzzwords. It's actually about doing a great job for your clients. So obviously, as you were building the business, you've learned lessons both in the experience of building it, but also, Nikki, you brought a whole host of experiences from recruitment. You're naturally going to know a little bit about this stuff. What would you say has been the biggest differentiator between yourself and what you see of other firms in terms of how you deal with people?
I think the thing that I noticed most was that we have a vision. Bizarrely, I think what we were hearing as we were interviewing, or we hear quite frequently, is that when people go on interviews, they're never told what the vision is for that practice. Presumably because not very many practices actually do have a vision. So
Yes.
Even with the ones that are buying and building now, I think it's just, what's the end? What is it? What's the end result? What are you looking to achieve? So I think I've always thought that that's a peculiar thing, because if I was going for an interview in a business, I'd want to know what the future holds, even if you don't intend to stay there forever. So that was one thing that I noticed. The other thing was the personality profiling, which has become much more common now. But
Yeah.
when we started doing it, it really wasn't. And I think that's been a positive thing that's come into the profession now. We don't use it actually in the recruitment phase, because I think sometimes people aren't very comfortable doing those things. So it tends
Sure.
to be something we do in probation periods. And that gives us a chance to get to know that person truly, without the, putting on a front for an interview or being nervous
Yes.
because you're in an interview. But I think the other thing, I personally haven't seen really that much of a change in terms of, I know that there's been pinch points where the bigger firms have been offering ridiculous salaries that we just wouldn't be able to compete with. And we had that after COVID. But other than that, I think it's always been difficult to recruit in practice, because the lure of industry is always there. And
Absolutely.
Nigel is probably an example of an unusual example of someone that was in the profession and went into industry and then came back to the profession. But you came back in a leadership, in a controlling leadership role, so it's probably a bit different.
You're right. I think we have to. I think we're really great at talking ourselves into situations as accountants. I firmly believe that where we say, "Oh, there's not the people coming into practice anymore." That's because we're not creating an environment that encourages people to come into practice. If you go into smaller firms, the reality is, it's sort of dead man walking almost. We'll come in, but there is no future. There is no
growth.
No growth. And as well, people aren't involved. That those firms traditionally, not the new firms, but certainly, the firms that are around in my day, and some of the firms we talk about now of my generation, they don't involve. They don't trust their staff to be able to contribute, to have the experience. They don't give them the ability to fail. And I think that's something we've always done. We've always, if somebody's tried, we're happy to give team members the opportunity to try something. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. There's no blame on it. It was a good, let's move on. What have we learned from it? Let's make sure we don't do it again. Had it got legs, that with a bit of tweaking and work? If it not, okay, well, it's about contribution. And I think it's about the contribution of all the team members. That's the thing that I've noticed. We're hearing from other practices that I worked in the dark ages. It was always a problem where you wouldn't speak to the partner. The partner's door was closed. You weren't allowed to contribute. You weren't allowed to speak to clients. We try and get our guys in front of clients almost immediately, because
usually on the text. They're very, on the text side.
Okay, so clearly, when you're interviewing, you use the vision as a differentiator, and it's not just, superficial content and padding for an interview. Let's be honest, the vision is what's got you to where you are today in the firm and where you're going to get to. How do you, as leaders of the practice, how do you maintain the, the resonance of the vision, and reminding the team of things like your values and how they should do things in the Ad Val way?
So we've been doing this for probably, I would say we've been purposeful for 10 years now. So, we're coming up to our end of our 10-year plan. And I think we have monthly all hands team meetings. We have 2 times a year, Christmas and in the summer, where we have again all hands
Sure.
And I think what the big pinch point came when we started needing, a management team. So we actually brought in a management consultant to help us build that management structure, because now that has to come not just from us, but it has to come from our management team as well. So we've got this rhythm now in the business that we've had for 10 years, where we're constantly talking about a company flywheel we've got, is what we talk
Sure.
about, is the company flywheel. And it's been developed with our team, not just the team that we've built, but also as we've also acquired people that have been in other firms for 20, 30 years, so we're which is what I'm really proud of, actually. But they have those values. They have very similar values to us, but they didn't articulate them. So
Yes.
it's just one of those things that actually is just getting people used to articulating these things. And I think that's just something that's not been normal really in accounting. Everyone's very humble and low key, which is why we struggle to get people to come on podcasts and do things like this.
Yes.
Because I think naturally, in the profession, wonderful people who are very, very humble, and it's just, you really want them to sing about them and shout about how good they are. They just don't want to do.
Absolutely. And because, as leaders who are saying this stuff, is by the time you're bored of saying this stuff about things like values and your vision, that's the point that they're only just hearing it. You might be bored to tears of it by that point, but it's only just cracking through. I'm just going to take a bit of a diversion before we go back to the core business. When you've bought in a firm through, let's say, acquisition, merger, call it what we will, these people who you didn't choose, but actually they're part of a deal and they're coming along. How have you found that journey of bringing them onto the Ad Valorem way of doing things?
It's been a mixed bag. I think we've had some firms, we've done 7 now, something like that.
Yeah, about 7 or 8 actually.
7 or 8, and then it's a mixed bag of, I think we've always maybe got one that doesn't want to come on board, or we're a bit unusual in the due diligence processes, that we try to meet the team before the deal completes, which has to be something that the sellers are comfortable with. But what the deals that have worked the best have been the ones where we've gone in before, maybe a month before, met the team, got them comfortable as you can in these situations, and then by the time the clients get to know about it, you've already got the team comfortable, and obviously the clients are attached to the team. So, but it depends what the culture has been like in the firm, because if you can't get away from the fact we're a bigger business, so we have to have more we are more processed. We have more policies in place and things like that, and it doesn't always suit everybody. They might want to stay in a small firm, which is absolutely fine. But on the whole, as I say, we've got our head of compliance, Tom, came with the acquisition 6 years ago. He said yesterday everybody he worked with is still here, from that acquisition. But I would say Mark,
that says it all. Let's be honest.
That's not to say every deal has been like that. So I'm not going to paint this perfect picture, because I think acquisitions are very difficult in terms of you don't know, they've not picked you as someone to work with, and you've not picked them. So it is a trust thing. You need to build that trust. But I say it does depend largely on the attitude of the outgoing, it tends to be retiring partners. So it's their attitude to it can make a huge difference. So I say the Taylor Roberts acquisition, we had Mark Taylor, who stayed with us for 5 years. Maybe that's something to do with why the team stayed with us.
Got it.
So and he helped us a lot actually with subsequent ones, sort of helping the outgoing partners, because it's a big. I think I'm going to be terrible when it comes to it. Having to.
It's awful, isn't it? Because it must be awful, because you're being told.
I'll be fine.
You've got your beautiful baby that you've built over however many years, And then a fundamental part of the negotiation is being told that you've got an ugly baby. When you look at it objectively, it's not a nice situation
No.
at all.
No.
One of the other things I just want to ask you is, because you've been through quite literally, the embryonic stage where a business can, fly by the seat of its pants in certain areas, particularly when it comes to building processes and having a corporate structure. And then been through the journey of finding the vision, scaling it, taking external investment, and being now at a stage where it really can be seen as a robust, proper business. What were from your perspective, what were the key steps along the way where you felt, do you know what, we need to up our game in terms of how we deal with people?
It was probably at the point I had too many direct reports at one point, and it's recognising. I did a lot of reading at the time, and when I could feel myself not coping very well, and you were saying to me that, I was listening to Nigel. He was saying to me, "You've got too many reports," and I think Intuit built itself on the basis of you only have 5 direct reports. So we kind of looked at the whole company at that point and said, right, okay, we need to build a management structure where nobody has more than 5 direct line, you're not line managing more than 5 people. And that was, again, quite a change, but it meant that we could be scalable now. So we have pods that are no more than 5.
Sure.
We have senior managers that don't manage more than 5. I've now got somebody who, Neil Warmer, who's Group Ops Director now. He came in as on the sales side, but of course, again, he's recruitment background, so he's very commercial, but he's also very much about developing people and their management skills. So he'd come from a big corporate Hayes recruitment, where he'd managed and built sales teams. So obviously massively commercial, but you still got to get people to be good managers. So that was an investment that we've made, and that I don't think we could keep scaling unless we had that investment of someone who can manage the managers and help them to train. And so he was a real key hire, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think, as the board's formulated, I mean, one of the things that was a big issue for me, we went through a stage when we first sort of put our foot on the gas, and I was just in meetings all the time. And it's talk about a caged animal. We said earlier, that's not my arena. My attention span is pretty short. So for me to be constantly meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting,
it's not how you want to spend your time.
it was really not pleasant. So I think bringing Neil on and seeing people develop and grow within the business, taking on that responsibility has freed me up increasingly, and for me to do my stuff, some of which is great, some of which. Yeah, some of it gets politely considered and refused, But but no, I mean, I think that's been the biggest. The biggest thing is bringing external people in. It doesn't always work, and the unfortunate thing with as you grow and as you scale, you have to have difficult conversations. Sometimes it's not with us.
Absolutely right. We've spoken a little bit about the recruitment processes. But in terms of those difficult situations where things aren't quite going to plan, we love to pretend as practitioners that we don't lose any clients, we don't lose any staff members and so on. The reality is that there's the good, the bad and the ugly in everything. And sometimes it's just not a fit. And it might not be the person. It might just be the alignment between the person and the business. How do you, I guess... The question I want to ask, not actually how do you do it, because we kind of know how these conversations take place, unfortunately. But in terms of your ethos of how you deal with this, how do you approach it in your mind? And At what point do you start driving the conversation? And yeah, it'd be good to know a little bit about how you work through that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is you've got to have open communication lines, and I think, unfortunately, sometimes you, it's a difficult one. I think we've had very positive outcomes, so it's not always it's not having a difficult conversation doesn't always mean that it's going to end in tears.
Mm.
We've got people with us in in our senior positions who we've had difficult conversations with on occasions,
Yeah.
and it's just the way I look at it is it's two people with different points of view, and it's just how you can communicate with each other. We've also had it where you find, look, we're not the business we were 25 years ago. So not everybody is going to come on that journey with you. And we couldn't sit here and say that 25 years ago we thought we'd have the business we have today,
Yeah.
because it doesn't work like that.
No.
You have challenges, you have things thrown at you. What I would say is we've always, anybody new, including whether it comes from acquisition or recruitment, we always say you're not going to be the new person for long, because as a company we don't stand still. Now, I think the nature of the work means that, going back to personality profiles, you get some people that are really very anxious about change or very anxious about getting things right, and no matter how much you say that you can work with that, and we might work with it for a period of time, but if it comes to the point where they just can't overcome that, they're never going to be happy in our environment. That's not to say they wouldn't be happy in a slower moving, practices working with different types of clients. So I think that's the thing. It's not, as you say, it's not necessarily a sign on either us or them. It's just, we have certain type of clients, we have certain types of work. If that's not always going to suit everybody, and you can talk about things in interview, but actually when you come into it and actually deal with the reality of it, sometimes it doesn't work. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think
we can sometimes fall into the trap of hiring on skills rather than the behaviours, personalities, motivation, which we could try to steer, but we can't necessarily, inject personality into someone or inject motivation every day. We just can't do that. And again, it doesn't mean that they won't be a perfect fit for a practice that works in a completely different way.
I think you're right. I mean, one of the things I've seen a lot, Carl, is when you talk to other practitioners and they make an excuse for somebody. They say, "Oh, I've got so and so. He's absolutely brilliant. He's an absolute nightmare. He's doesn't listen to what we say. He shouts at everybody, but he's brilliant technically." You can't put up with that behaviour, and it doesn't. And I think sometimes we do, because we're professional. We get impressed by people's technical abilities without actually thinking, well, you've got to play nicely as well. You've got to be part of the team. It's a bit like your star football team. The best football teams aren't the ones with 11 superstars in them. I don't know what I'm talking about football. I know nothing about football. Rugby and cricket. I know nothing about football.
Well, all I can tell you
is
mantra. whatever football team you're talking about is going to be better than Southend United. That's all I can say. But it's so true that there is a disproportionate importance, in my perspective, of will they do the job? Have they got the motivation to do the job, and will they fit into the team? Because the can they do the job can always be taught. I think that there's a disproportionate weighting towards that side of things. And, certainly from my experience, the big lesson that I've had is to hire slowly and fire quickly. That might sound awful to say it like that, but actually we tend to get it the wrong way round. That, we get ourselves into a problem where we've got too much work to do, not enough people. We hire quickly just to solve that immediate problem. It's typically someone who can do the job from day one, and then we're too reluctant to have the conversation with them. Yeah. I would imagine a lot of people listening would own up to having made that mistake in the past as well.
I do think the new HR regulations in that respect, though, will mean that really 6 months is that you have to make that decision within 6 months now, which we probably would have, in honesty, given longer than that, generally, because I think, you know,
unless it's extreme.
Unless
it's extreme.
Yes.
We've never really had that, but I think it's just, again, it comes down to people, doesn't it? They're the inexact science in what we do.
Absolutely, and also giving them a fair crack of the whip as well. You know, making sure that the induction processes are there, you know, the actual processes and systems within the business are there, and the learning and development to facilitate where they want to be. Okay, I'm very conscious that the overlords at ACCA are going to slap my wrist if I keep on talking too much here. So I do want to come to the point on the podcast where we talk about some. I guess some rapid fire questions that allow us to understand the real you. However, as there's two of you, this is going to be a really interesting dynamic. So we're going to play this one by ear. The first thing that I want to ask, and I want to ask each of you these, so if you both come back with your own answers, what did you guys want to do when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a rock and roll star.
Well, I knew that one, Nigel, but I was mindful the audience wouldn't be so sure. Check this guy out for his record label and all sorts. Nikki, how about you?
I've always wanted to be in business, which sounds really sad, but I used to go to work with my dad, and he was in those great big computer rooms in those days.
Okay.
And I think they've even got a credit control letter that I wrote when I was about 8 years old.
She's terrified. I'll tell you, she's
wow.
They don't let you get away with anything.
I need to find that, but they've still got it in their mementos box. I think I was saying, if you don't pay your bill, I'm calling the police or something funny.
So I've got
works every time.
Works
every time, Carl. We use it standard.
I've got an embarrassing admission to make, but yours, Nikki, was a whole lot more realistic than mine. At the age of 12, I think it was, I wrote a letter to the Southend United chairman based on my experience on Championship Manager, which is now called Football Manager, I think. So a computer game, applying for the job as manager of Southend United with no idea of what it took to be a football manager. And I wasn't a very good footballer, so that would never happen. So sometimes that visualization comes true, as in your case, Nikki. Sometimes it's not so good. What advice would you give your younger selves?
Follow your own instincts.
Okay.
I was told at school that I was literally told at school I was stupid and I couldn't do anything academic. So believe in yourself.
Oh yeah, mine was very similar. Believe in yourself, because I know people don't believe me when I say it now, but I cannot believe I'm doing what I'm doing now. Even being on a podcast, I was very, very shy. So I think I wish I'd shyness.
You're certainly smashing. You're smashing it today. There's no shyness whatsoever nowadays.
That's just being made to do it.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I feel the pain every time she does these things. So that's about working together.
Oh, yes. So I like to ask guests about their dream dinner party guests and ask them to invite 3 people. However, the table has only got 4 seats. So one guest at a dinner party that you'd like to have around the table.
Alive or dead?
Alive or dead, fictional, non-fictional, whoever you want.
John Lennon.
John Lennon and...
Oh, see, I'm going to be boring again. I'd say Karen Brady.
John Lennon and Karen Brady as a Southend United supporter. I absolutely would not have Karen Brady round the table, but there we go. That goes back to her Birmingham City days. Okay. Over the last recent times, what is the best thing that each of you have purchased that costs next to nothing? So say up to 50 quid that's changed your life or your business in some way.
Oh gosh, these are hard questions.
Right. Okay. For me, what's less than 50 quid?
Less than £50.
So it could be an app. It could be something for £1. It could be £49.99.
Right. Okay. For me, I'm increasingly moving towards my music roots. So for me, it's an album by Vashti Bunyan called Just Another Diamond Day. Amazing album.
Fantastic. And Nikki?
Oh my God, I can't think of anything. Say the question again. What's
Okay, so something you've bought that's changed your life or your business positively in some way, so that everyone listening can rush out and buy it themselves.
Well, I'm a book reader, so I would say the book, The Loyalty Rules.
Loyalty Rules. Okay, do you know the name of the author?
Can't remember, but it was 10 years ago. This is what got us onto this, where we are now, really.
Okay.
Because it was
No
like
problem.
six principles of how you get loyalty from team, anybody.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
the Loyalty Rules. Excellent.
Loyalty rules, yeah.
Okay, what's the dream for the business?
Well, the dream to get to here was to get 10 million turnover.
Okay.
So that was for, as I say, not purely for growth, but we thought that's a decent size to be able to get an all-round offering, which we have. But the dream now is to go beyond us. I think the next generation have got their vision of where they'd like to take it. We see ourselves very much as that stabilising factor. Well, as they put it, making sure they don't burn the house down. But I think, again, looking at where the market's going, very much staying in our lane in the SME world, but scaling it to be beyond. Probably, I'd say 30 million is where they're looking to get it to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about, doing stuff with this business that allows us to have a voice at a higher level, champion small business and SMEs at government level, being big enough for people to take notice of us. Because I feel that is something that, you mentioned small businesses to the government officials. They've got no idea what a small business is.
No.
And
100% agree. And when without wanting to get too political, we can look at a third of employees in corporates, a third of employees in the public sector, and then you've got the missing third who are either self-employed or family members directly impacted by the self-employed. But I won't go too far down that track because I think we're quite aligned on that. Guys, This has been a fantastic episode. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. In particular, I loved hearing about the journey and quite frankly, the fantastic vision that you had to drive the business to where you've got to today. It's really good to actually understand a little bit about the secrets of your success. So looking under the hood, finding out about how personality profiling isn't just something that you do a disc profile and file it away somewhere, but you actually use it not just to arbitrarily choose an employee, but actually to support you in how you communicate with them and as part of their development. It was good to talk about difficult questions and how to have difficult conversations. And I felt that it was really refreshing for you to say quite openly that actually difficult conversations are part of life, whether it's an exit conversation or actually if it's an improvement and development question. And of course, amazing to hear about your dinner guests and who you'd have around the table, apart from Karen Brady. Guys, thank you so much for sparing your time to join us today. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thanks
Thanks
for having
very
us.
much, Carl. Thank you very much.